Go.
I'm Peggy Young. I married John Young, who is a Blair native, and I met him when I was early in my nurse's training. I went down to the University of Nebraska for my schooling. They wouldn't let me come when I graduated from high school because I was just 16, and so I spent a year at Wayne State. Then I came down. And Peggy and I, Peggy Thompson Kaufman, we have been good friends for then and all through the years. And she's from Blair. We arrived down there, and I didn't know there were any instructions, so I met one of my girlfriends who was going to a business school down there, and we went downtown to a movie, and we came back, and it was 10:30, and the doors had closed at 10. So I stood there and cried. I didn't know what to do, and the house mother came, and I told her I didn't know that. She said, well, go up to bed. So I did. So they started us off. They gave us these uniforms, which behind me, it's about half that uniform. They gave us the blue and white stripes. And the first things they did with us, I really question it, but they took us into a private room where there were two ladies who were unconscious. They were unconscious for life. They were not going to wake up. And they taught us how to do back rubs on them. So they got a lot of back rubs, whether they knew it or not. So we learned the back rub. Then they started us in the hospital right away, and they would assign us situations, and we worked on those wards, and we do 8-hour shifts, and we did our work physically. Then if we weren't done, we had to stay and write down everything we did, which was quite a bit. So we often were there 1 or 2 hours more, and we weren't earning any money anyway, but we did not. They did not object to us working later, so we did that. They put us on evenings and nights quite fast, and when they did that, all the areas, all the wards were students, and then there were 2 people who were over us in the house. And anyway, when I worked 11 to 7, we did it 2 weeks straight, and then we got 3 days off. And I got sick every time I did that. I was so tired. We lived in a Conkling Hall, which was a little ways across the street and a little farther from the hospital. In the winter time, we went through a tunnel from Conkling Hall to the hospital, and it was dark, and it was curvy, and it scared all of us to death. So if we had to go over and work at 11, we just frightened, real frightened, thinking someone was going to jump out at us. So we started our work, and we were actually taking care of the whole hospital, the students were. So they gave us a lot of responsibility fast, but they were teaching us quickly. I think at the University of Nebraska, that's in Omaha, it's connected with the Med Center, and I think they gave us quality classes. I think we learned what we needed to learn, and I think they were good instructors, and I think we had a good group of gals. There were only 2 out of, I think, 45, 2 that left, and one wanted to get married, and the other one, I think, just couldn't make the grades. But we were real proud that all of us graduated at the end. So anyway, there were 43 of us at that point, and there were 3 classes. We were the freshman class. They were all women. When I was a senior, there was a black gal that came and started, and I was tickled. There weren't any men, but she came, and we enjoyed having her with us. When I got down there, they had a TV in our lounge, and that was the first TV I'd ever been around. But I wasn't interested in it. I was busy doing my classwork, so I didn't really know it. We had a beauty contest that fall, and they were going to go out for the College World Series in Omaha, and they were going to have a queen from the University Hospital. And so I was to take them into a room, and the 2 judges were 2 men that were broadcast personnel. It wasn't Johnny Carson, darn it. Anyway, Floyd Calver, if you remember him. Floyd Calver was there. Well, I hadn't watched TV, so I said, now which one of you is Floyd Calver? And I'm sure he was a little insulted, but I didn't know him. Anyway, they judged, and one of my good friends was a queen, so that was fun. and we loved the World Series. The other thing we got to do extracurricular was we were allowed to sign up to be ushers at the Omaha Community Theater. Now it was smaller then, and it was nearer for us, probably 5 blocks from our home. And we'd go in there and we'd usher, and then we could watch the rest of the theater the evening free. The only problem was we had to be in at 10, so often it wasn't done, so we had to leave in the middle of the play. But anyway, we were exposed to that, and it was fun. Another thing we did, one time one of the girls said, there's something new down in Leavenworth. Let's go see what that is. It's called pizza. It was La Casa's Pizza. So we went down there, many group of us, and experienced our first taste of pizza. And something else that we did nightly, this friend Peggy and I, we would go down to Hinky Dinky, which was about 3 blocks away, and we'd get a package of those wonderful cinnamon rolls. And we'd open it up and we'd eat the cinnamon rolls as we walked back to the dorm. And that was how I met John. Peggy went with, Skip Smith was his name from Blair. And Skip didn't have a car, so John brought him down to see Peggy. We didn't know about it. And so they saw us coming and they waited for us, and that was my first date with my husband, was doubling with Peggy and Skip Smith. We went over to Council Bluffs for some kind of a recreation area, and they had a roller coaster, and I'm scared to death of them, but I was afraid to say anything, so we went on the roller coaster. And they finished it, and I was ready to get up, and they said, oh, that's fun, we'll do it one more time. So we had to go through the roller coaster again. Anyway, I did live through it. Okay, we were over at the hospital. We were fed at the hospital. I wouldn't say it was particularly good food, but it was a lot better than county's. We had some of our service up at County Hospital, and we had to walk those blocks, probably 8 blocks, I suppose. We had to walk unless someone managed to find a car from somewhere. And county was not easy. It was an old building, and we ate on tin trays that to me just seemed so, I felt like we were in the military or something. Anyway, it was not a real fun one. And then we were up there for the psych unit before the new one was built. And we did fun things with them. I remember learning a little bit about chess from one of the patients. He was a pharmacist, and he taught me that, and we went out and played baseball. And I grew up with 4 brothers, but I was never athletic, and I was always out there playing, but I couldn't do anything. So anyway, they taught me a little bit about that, and we had some dances, and we got to dance with the patients. Another classmate of mine and I sang a duet at one little program. I don't know how we did it, but I started to laugh in the middle of it, so I didn't really help it. When we got up in the morning, we had to put our uniforms together, and there's little buttons that it's the same button, only one side's bigger, and you push it through there. The laundry ladies did our uniforms for us, and we did so much physical work, we pretty much had to change every day. And so we'd have to get up at either the night before or that morning and spend 15 minutes poking all that stuff together and putting it on. It was terrifically hot. The wards were 7 people on each side, and then 2 private rooms. And pretty much university then was more indigent people. They brought people in from the state to do research on them and to educate the med students on unusual diseases. So when we'd be in there, the wind would be blowing in the summer, and we'd have the windows wide open, and it was just suffocating. But I don't know how we got through that, but we did. But you know, think about us, the patients also had to be in that hot environment, and we were all used to it. So that was how we started in the summer. And after a certain number of months, they gave us a capping ceremony, and they let us wear our caps, which is right there. I think, yes, right there. And that was real exciting. And we also got the little lamps that are, it's Florence Nightingale lamp, and we got those presented to us. So it was very emotional and very elaborate, and we felt real proud. We worked in certain specialty areas later, probably our senior year, but we had children's. That was one of my last areas that I had, and I had thought about being applying at Children's for a job because I did enjoy the children. But it was very hard emotionally there because children were brought in, children with very difficult diagnoses, and often died. And it was hard. It was hard on us to see those little ones die. So it was not the happiest area to be in. One time I took care of this little native girl for several days, and then we were told that she had an active TB, and we were all to be tested. And after that, I had a positive reaction to it, but the TB that I had in a healthy person, it just had a circle around it, and it was deactivated, so it didn't really cause a problem. We learned to give IVs. We don't do anything like the nurses nowadays, but we did do some things. And I remember one time we had terrible little tables that are on rollers, and the doctor, it was the intern, was going down to start blood on a patient, and I was pushing the thing behind him, and the thing locked like that, and the container of blood flew over like that, and it broke, and there was blood everywhere. And they had to, of course, go through all that again, do all that cross-matching. It was terrible. And I hated that. It was a bad moment. We had to work in areas like we had to work in the autoclave room where we washed everything and wrapped it up and got it sterilized. We had to work on needles in another area, and we had to sharpen the needles with a little instrument, and the needles were not disposable. So we did that and then put it in a automatic instrument of some kind, and it sterilized them. Then we had to get them out and have them wrapped. So we helped in the nursery. She taught us how to make formula and how to feed the little ones. And in OB, we got to help with the deliveries, and surgery, we got to be there and hand the doctor the instruments. And it was all fun, very educational, scary at times. Our teachers were real sweet, except the nurse in the surgery. Her name was Miss Uren. I'm sure she's gone by now, but she was tough. And some of the girls that were not too sure of themselves, she scared them. But anyway, she knew her stuff, and we learned from her. I'm going to glance and see if I have anything to tell you. Yeah, gosh, I got through it pretty good.
You're doing great, Peggy. These are wonderful stories.
Well, they're just history is all they are.
And that's what we want to record.
Okay. We had to, when we worked nights, we still had to go to class. So we would work 11 to 7 and off until 8 or 9. Then at 9 till 12, we had classes. So we had to stay awake all that time and then try to get some sleep so we'd be ready to go the next night. And when I was on night duty one time, they decided they were going to build a new nurses' home, and it was going to be right by the window of my room. And so there I was, no air conditioning, and they were banging in the whatever they're called, the bottom part of the new building. So it was awful. So it was a I don't know how I got through it, but I don't sleep a lot now. I think that's probably why, because I didn't sleep very much then. I had a classmate who was very artistic. She could do ballet, and we would have talent nights with the med students. And she did a cute little Red Riding Hood, and she ran around, danced around, and made a beautiful little story. But it was fun. We saw the med students every once in a while. We had a bowling team with them. We were invited over there for parties once in a while. So we did see them, and Peggy, my friend from Blair, married Jack Kaufman, who was a doctor. He just passed away last fall. But they were the first people we told when John and I were engaged. I said, we need to tell Peggy. So we ran down to their apartment and told them. When it got to graduation time, we were encouraged to try to decide where we were going to work. Well, I had heard that some of the girls were going to go and apply at Clarkson. Clarkson was a brand new building. So I went and told my head nurse that, and she said, I'd like to have you come in the office. So I said, well, okay, I'll go in the office. And she said, I wish you'd stay here. I need you to be a supervisor on one of the wards. So it was a men's medical ward, and that sounded good to me, because before that I had been on a men's surgical ward, and the surgeries would come in and they could be real scary. You know, you'd worry that they weren't even going to make it. And one young man had burns all over, and we had him there for weeks. He was from Norfolk, and we found out within months he had another accident and killed himself. So things like that are sad. You do all that work, and it doesn't always work out. Anyway, they have a third nurses' home now, and it's a lovely place. The girls are on the 4-year degree plan. When we were there, excuse me, it was the 5-year degree plan. The very next year after that, I would have been in on that. But, you know, I was anxious to go and be a nurse, so I did it then. We were younger than the gals that were in the service. I know some gals that were in the World War II service, but that must have been a terrific load for them to go into the areas where there were actual fighting, and they were trying to help help save people. It had to have been a tremendous decision. Anything else I have to tell you? Oh, I know. When we graduated, we were not supposed to ask, when we applied for a job, we were not supposed to ask how much we were making. Oh, I forgot to tell you, honey, I'm sorry. I was going to let John know that I was going to talk. Anyway, we didn't ask. We just went in, said we'd wanted to apply, and they gave us a job. And then we found out later how much we were going to make. They thought we were serving people, and we do not ask for a certain amount of pay. So consequently, we didn't get much anyway, so it didn't matter. I went with my roommate out to brand new shopping center in Omaha, and it was on, oh, John, where was that shopping center? It was in it was
42nd.
42nd, yeah, in Center, right?
Right.
42nd and Center, and they had all these new shops there. And my roommate, she would get confused easily. She lost her purse, and she had cashed her very first paycheck and put it in there, cash. So we went back home. We were so worried and felt so bad, and some wonderful person called her and said, we have your purse with your money in it, and we're going to deliver it to you. So she was fortunate. She had a very kind person that found her purse. I heard stories, and I honestly didn't do it because I was so naive and young, but the lights would go down when we had one teacher. She taught the history of nursing, and she was totally boring, and she had a mouth that she'd dribble on. She'd blah, 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 blah. And she called me Miss McQueeston. I answered to Miss McQueeston, and so some of the classmates snuck out behind the chairs and got out of the classroom for a certain amount of time. I didn't know they were doing it, but I wouldn't have done it anyway. I was so scared of doing something wrong. One time my brother Bill, he had just started at the university, and he had a car. Of course, he was a boy and I was a girl. That was the difference there. And he was going to come from Lincoln to pick me up to go take me home. And I got a call from the director of nurses, and so I went in to Miss Kyle, and I said, did you want me? And she said, yes, Peggy. Is it really your brother who's going to pick you up? I said, yes. And she could see how dumb I was, so I think she realized that I really wasn't going to go out with somebody for the night. So anyway, we had great experiences. We had an excellent school, and we had very good teachers, and we got really nice grades on our tests at the end of our term. And the girls that are graduating now get their grades almost instantly because it's on a machine. I think we waited 3 months before we found out if we were an RN or not. But it was a great experience, and I'm like Dr. Bagby. I asked him, would you go back into medicine with all the differences now that are so much harder? He said, yes, I would. And I would do the same thing in nursing. I'd have a lot to learn, but I would do it because it's a wonderful career. You feel like you've done something in your life. The end.
All right. Well, this has been Peggy Young. Lives here in Blair, has been a nurse for a number of years. Again, another friend.